Hi, welcome to on today's episode, Let the Bodies Hit the Floor, Digital Dilemmas, What We've Learned and Unlearned So Far, and the church's second Super Bowl. Hi.
Hi, Danielle.
Hello, welcome to our last...
our last one of the season.
Yeah, Lucky 26.
End of season 2.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
We're
that's
doing
great.
it. We're out here
and
doing
hey,
it.
we just started talking about season 3 a couple days ago, and that's going to be exciting, I think.
I think so, too.
Hopefully people will... if you've been listening along and want to make sure that you don't miss that next thing, I think it's going to be awesome. I think we've got a really cool plan that is going to help lots of churches and church leaders and people who just want to listen into the behind the scenes of what's happening at the church. And so I think we'll be dropping that season sometime in the fall-ish, late summer, early fall. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, we have to take advantage of the 2 months of sunshine.
Right.
That we have in Erie.
Exactly.
We're podcasting from the beach.
Oh man, you found a roast your city thing that made me laugh so hard last night. It was so funny.
You guys can do that. So it's like an AI to roast your city. Just Google it. Oh my goodness.
Speaking of Erie,
it's so accurate. All right, so let's talk about megachurch memories. This is where we focus on what was, what should or shouldn't have been, and what has endured, or maybe shouldn't have endured, or however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
What did you pick for today?
Well, so I thought we'd go out with a bang with the and this might be the last mega church memory that we have ever, but that we maybe save the best for last. Okay. That is the rise of the televangelist. So this was probably an offshoot of the mega church. It probably didn't come up in the mega church, but it was about the same time. This idea that pastors could have a kind of a TV audience. I think it was in the wake of actual maybe evangelists that had a TV audience like Billy Graham or some of these folks that really utilized the technology of TV to spread the gospel, and this got a little bit more weird.
They just went for it.
And instead of preaching to crowds on TV, they just them and a camera and prayer hankies
and money. Money. That's where "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor" comes from. That was one of the first viral videos, like Christian viral videos. I remember
Benny Hinn.
It was just Benny Hinn like slaying people in the spirit to that like death metal song. Let the bodies hit the floor. That's what I remember.
Look it up on YouTube. It's probably out there.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm listening to Devil in the Deep Blue Sea. It's a Christianity Today podcast. Same guy that did the Mars Hill one.
Mike Cosper.
Mike Cosper, thank you. Yeah. So he's going through kind of this time in history where it was like the satanic panic. And like, people like Jerry Falwell and whatever were like having these rises and like getting involved in media and politics and how all that stuff, the stuff that we feel like today has been around forever, but it's really only been like a couple decades, all this stuff. So I think all this televangelism stuff is also rose up in that culture of just like, get good stuff on the airwaves, like, saturate.
And you even think about the spiritual component of that, of like, if people are worried about Satanism rising, it's like we have to amp up on the Christian side, the whole spiritual, Holy Spirit need to go, and so we had to almost match the intensity of the Satanism.
Oh, yes, we did. And we did. And we did.
Did we ever?
But that's a good podcast if you want one.
Do you have some favorite televangelists that you look back on with?
Obviously, who hasn't dressed up as Tammy Faye? I almost wore blue eyeshadow today.
Oh man, the Tammy Faye.
That was. There are some I have some visuals of her just crying and like all the mascara and stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
But I wasn't super into it. Like my grandma watched like a couple, like she would have a couple things or whatever. But like,
I have a friend who grew up in a pretty rough environment. Yeah. Who's like one of his literal memories of his dying mom was her sending basically her last dollars to these televangelists. Like there's some really, really sad stories.
Oh, there are,
and
of course.
If I'm to kind of favorite, Robert Tilton. If you've never seen Robert Tilton,
look it up.
Well, he's the one that they. But he's the one that they like in more recent times put like fart noises behind and had him,
my gosh.
His facial reactions were like,
now I know who he is.
You know who I'm talking about?
Yes, absolutely.
So that's the modern version, but the original version was crazy.
Oh man.
I mean, just shame on me. Like there was some entertainment value to it. So like some of those guys, you'd scroll late night and just like, I got to watch this for a minute because it's just so ridiculous.
You're like buying Wow Christian CDs in the commercials, watching the. Yeah.
I don't think there were commercials. I think they just bought,
they were
bought
their
the
own
whole
commercial.
half hour.
No, their commercial would be their like cassette thing come up. You can buy this 50
the
cassettes.
Prayer hankies. The prayer hankies were one.
Yeah.
He's waving it right now. Or I'll never forget the holy water from Jerusalem.
Oh,
for the River Jordan or whatever.
River Jordan water. The oil in the oil. Oh, man.
Anointing oil from, the
Holy
Land.
And also, Derek.
Listen, we don't need to bring this up. I think we should wrap this segment up.
You are
now.
A televangelist, depending on the definition.
So there's this weird thing that like this is this memory for me that I it's like when you go into ministry, it's like that's the one thing I will never be. Right. It's just like when you see these guys, it's like I will run from that like with a vengeance. And then at the beginning of COVID, one of the strategies that emerged out of our church was like, hey, what if we put our church services on TV for people who may, we had online church and stuff going too, but it was like there's certain segments of our population that probably just find it more convenient to be able to have it on TV. Yeah. And so we went on 3 channels Sunday morning at really early 2020. And we've had such incredible fruit that has come from that, feedback, and stories that we are still going 5 years later on TV. And so technically, Danielle, I suppose, no, I'm not. That's
You're not.
True.
You get on and do the sermon, and that's all you do.
Yeah, it's basically our service on TV.
Yeah, we just have some pre-recorded worship, and we have a host, and it's very tame. It's very like just.
I'm not asking for money. No, I'm not waving prayer hankies.
No. Well, I mean,
zero holy water.
Bring it back. Bring it back. But yeah, so that's, so lasting benefits though, along those lines, I think is just, again, you got to take the good with the bad, but adopting technology for the gospel. Anytime stuff like this comes up, I always think of just like, what would Paul have done with like a printing press, a video camera, a cell phone? Like it would have been crazy.
His technology was, here's a letter, circulated among the churches, and he used that almost like, it almost acted like a multi-site situation where there's one teacher, multiple sites, read this circular letter, and man, what he would have done with video technology.
That's the only thing I can think of. And also
that's a good one.
Maybe CoverGirl blue eyeshadow, always available when you're dressing up for the 80s.
You told me to bring it back. You bring that back.
I will.
Okay, bye.
Don't threaten me with a good time. All right, training notes. This is where we're dedicating some overflow from internal staff trainings, Q&A, things like that. So this is kind of a hybrid of some training and some just thoughts, you've been having, I guess.
Yeah. And so we just went through, I would call this kind of a training for our whole church. Yeah. We just went through 40 days of a digital fast. We gave people kind of 3 levels that they could choose from. They could fast from social media. That was kind of the first and basic one. They could fast from entertainment. So that would have been like, TV and Netflix and bingeable shows. And then the
plus
third
social
was
media.
Plus social. Yeah. And then the third was if you wanted to add news to that. So to kind of fast from news feeds and all that. So, we've come through that together, and you did a version of it. I did a version of it. And I thought we could just kind of reflect on that digital fast for a minute, and any lessons, any new habits or things that you want to put into place or whatever. So,
what is one thing, I think we both have this in our list here, but like I knew this just from just being in the world and social media and stuff, but like the amount of times my husband would tell me something that happened in the news, and then like 3 days later, the opposite thing.
Right.
I was like, whoa.
It's wild.
Okay. Like the stuff is changing and pivoting so quickly, and we have so much access to all that process.
Yeah. Moment by moment.
And then, and I was, so I don't want that anymore. So I've been trying to think like, what are the like good old days things I can do? So I've been thinking like, I haven't instituted anything. I haven't really went back at all. I don't want to be ignorant.
Yeah.
But like, I'm thinking like weekly rhythm of news.
I know.
Maybe nightly.
Yeah.
And I'm not even saying watch the news. Even if I want to like go look at like, whatever newspaper online or whatever, it doesn't have to be like watching TV.
Yep.
But I just, it's toxic.
It is so toxic. And it's why, like, I came out of it, and the first few conversations, well, I think I might have said this to you, but like, as I was going, as I would come across people who are not obviously on a digital fast,
yes.
The word that kept coming to mind was captured.
Yeah.
That we feel like a captured people, like we've been captured by the news and our news feeds and reacting to every, like, can you imagine if somebody followed you or me around and like moment by moment was getting a take on what we were thinking at that moment and how often that would change?
Yes.
And even like on important decisions of like, holy cow. And so, and then if you say one thing and then the whole world reacts to that one thing and then 10 minutes later you change and the whole world
it's
reacts.
like rigid, it's so rigid.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And here's what he said and here's what this must mean. And then let's all react to it with outrage. It is the wildest. And to be away from it and to come back into it is the wildest thing.
It's weird.
So you talked about, the rhythm, and that, I think that's an important word. The thing that I'm just like, I never again need a headline. I'm like ready to just like sign off headlines and be like, I'm doing long form only, reading it only, or going to the original source.
Yeah.
This was one of the other things that was wild, and I did actually a little bit of a personal experiment when I came back on. Because I'd been off for 40 days, like literally, and Kim was not off, and Kim be like, "Did you hear what?" I'm like, she's like, "Of course you didn't hear," and I'm like, "No, I didn't hear."
That's
but like, I won't even say the issue, but one of the main things was this one. Well, I will say it. It was the RFK thing with the autism.
Oh,
he gave a speech on autism or whatever, and so I went and looked at the headlines of kind of what was being reported that he said. And then I went and watched, it was a 27-minute, I went and watched his 27-minute speech on autism.
Yeah.
None of it was true.
Jeez, oh man.
Danielle, none of it was true.
I would believe it. It's scary.
And I mean, there's stuff that he said, I'm sure, that wasn't
correct or
accurate.
whatever. Yeah.
Like all that stuff I'm sure is true, or he didn't have the whatever background to be talking about or whatever.
Yeah.
But like the actual things that were being reported versus what he actually said, it was
we have no clue what's going on. Yeah.
It was wild how grossly inaccurate it was. And just, I heard somebody say that, headlines is like the digital media version of junk food.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That it's like, it's like a full meal versus like grabbing chips.
Yeah.
And not good for you.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable. It's not
healthy.
the right
it's not
stuff.
Giving you
It's not the right, it's not. So anyway,
news.
I think the news was a big deal.
It really was.
And I came out of it with, I don't read, I don't consume social media very much.
Right.
I produce a lot of social media, but I don't consume very much. But even this experience made me realize even what I do consume is not good for me.
It's all trash.
And it's, I kind of dipped back in on the, the second day kind of back and like scrolled through some feeds or whatever. And I'm like, oh, this is not good for me.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's good for me.
Even just, I was reading, I think it was Anne Voskamp. She wrote a little thing about like, we're like constantly being inundated with this stuff. And most of it, we're literally mentally, sociologically not wired to care about more than like our tribe, like 100 people.
Right.
And so you're seeing all this stuff that you have no
connection
you have no connection to, you have no control over, you have no influence. And so you're just getting these like half hits of stuff. And that's where the anxiety comes from. It's like, cause you're not seeing like conclusions and you're not having any kind of like tangible control.
Yeah.
And it's just fatigue, anxiety, all this brain fog stuff, and like it's
but then the other side of that coin is like you're getting half information about things you're not connected to and don't care about or can't control. But then all of a sudden the pressure is that I have to like care with my whole life about that thing that I really don't know anything about, but I have to pretend I know a lot about it because it's been so now embedded into me that I have to care about it to the point where I'm ready to break off family relationships over this thing that I know nothing about, nor should I.
Correct.
It is the wildest, wild west. I mean, so to be away from it and to come back in, it's like, I feel it's like going, on a mission trip to like a third world country and coming back to like Walmart and looking at floor to ceiling stuff and going, what have we done?
Yeah.
And that's honestly how I felt.
Yeah, I agree.
So anyway, what else, do you have any other?
Not me. I mean, the one super practical is we're establishing just kind of like phone-free zones. So, or times. We're still negotiating what we want it to be, but we know for sure one we're going to do is like restaurants. Just going to like leave the phone in the car.
Oh, that's good.
And Dave was like joking. He was like, what if there's an emergency? I'm like, explain the emergency. So the three of us are together. The three are a nuclear family. Okay.
Right.
What emergency is going to get us away from the table, not pay, rush out? What would it be?
Right. And has that ever happened so far in our life?
And what it's going to be is responding to a tragedy, not an emergency. So like, let's have a meal.
Right.
let's have a nice
one last
dinner,
meal before we have
and
to
then
deal with it.
You know, but like, yeah, if Dax isn't with us, maybe one of us has our phone or whatever, you know, but like, we're really trying to be intentional about that. And it's hard. It's especially hard with kids.
Yeah.
Our office was talking just about like the kids stuff. Like, you guys, the impact on the kids is insane.
Yeah.
It is not nothing.
Right.
All this like constant barrage of, oh gosh. Anyway,
yeah,
that's my big one. Limits, like in evaluating those limits on a consistent basis. That's my goal.
That's good. Yeah, I learned a bit about curating entertainment. I think that was a good takeaway for Kim and I, that like just having the TV on all evening when we both get home and just flipping like if we're sitting there together on the couch and flipping channels that's terrible. Like we've had such great conversations.
Yeah, that's cool.
Like, because one of our things is a couple days a week we would watch a show between 8 and 9 p.m. So we had a time frame, watch it together. We would decide what it was that we wanted to watch it together, turn it off. And then we talked. And we talked before, we talked after, and it was awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
And we did special dinners throughout.
Oh, yeah.
So that was one of the intentional things we did. Every Saturday night we tried to have dinner with another couple or another group. Yeah. Just going, we got nothing, we got other plans and other. So that was awesome. And again, something that we need to keep. That's a discipline for me because
I can relate.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
well, and I think we're similar in that like we can fill our time with like reading and research and entertainment, whatever you want to do. And I can feel really busy. Too busy for people. Right. And that's like my first thing that'll just go. Yeah. It's like, well, I don't need to have my neighbors over. What are you talking about?
I don't have time for that.
Well, I have YouTube shorts to watch. Not really. Okay. So, also hot tip for any church leaders. If your congregation does this, which ours did, I think a bunch of people did, your metrics will take a hit. So just be ready. Be ready to celebrate losses. Right. Which I'm excited.
And your invitations to Easter won't go quite the same.
Won't go quite the same. But it's fine. Just have a plan. Have a plan. It's all worth it. I think we should do it sometime out of Lent. Like not in Lent.
Right.
Just pick another time just for fun.
Yeah.
All right. Reinventing church topic. So again, this is just we're tweaking our assimilation model to have more of a disciple making focus. And we're learning as we go. And so each week we want to have a topic to discuss in front of you and practical moments of learning. So today we just wanted to take some time and talk about, I guess, some of the episodes we've had this season, but also just what we've learned so far just on the ground. Yeah. And I think we each have a couple.
Yeah, and I think as we keep going, we're coming up with new language to talk about some of these learnings. They may be, stuff that we learned a minute ago now that we're saying it a different way, it makes more sense and that sort of thing. So, one
thing I've learned though too is sometimes we'll learn something in a meeting or whatever, and then I'll say the learning on here, and then I'll walk away from here and go, no. That wasn't quite it. Because it's the language. It's like
it is. Yeah.
So I'll start with that. I would say like the just this like idea of gray or messy middle, like whatever you want to call it. I don't want that to be an excuse for like inaction or not being clear or anything like that. But there is a certain level but not everything is everything. Not everything can be everything. And so it takes some discernment, some time, some trial and error, whatever you want to say. But it also takes a ton of grace. It takes from me, from the person hearing me, from the person hearing me pivot, from whatever. And again, it's not in a spirit of wanting to like jerk people around or whatever. It's just, we literally are unlearning and learning all of this stuff at the same time. And so for me, like I think I told you this a long time ago, God gave me this like mental picture of our church, and it's like one foot is on like a bank of a stream and one foot is in the stream. And I feel like that has led to the longevity of like our organization. Yeah. And so that's what we're doing right now. We are actively doing that. We have one foot trying to not throw the baby out with the bathwater, and we have another foot in the stream that's being invented and trying to like catch up with it. And that's a lot of change for people. It's a lot of gray. Right. And so patience, I think, and just being committed to live in that and be patient with people has been a huge lesson for me.
That's really great. Yeah, it's really great. So mine is some new language around some of the stuff that we've been working on. I think it was John Tyson. I heard him talking about something, but he used this phrase, functional knowledge over intellectual brilliance. So that what people need right now, and we major on the intellectual brilliance, and like even what we were just talking about with the
just kidding.
even what we were just talking about with like the news, like I listened to one podcast and all of a sudden I'm an expert on some random topic that I didn't know existed. 1 hour ago, and now I'm a brilliant expert, intellectually up to speed. Right. And so we value that, and we think, people walk around talking like we know everything about, mineral rights in Ukraine or whatever, because I heard a press conference on it. And
I can do you one better. I learned that if you take a snail off of your skin, you can crush its shell. So you have to be a snail flicker. That's what I learned coming out of the digital fast. Anyway, so now I'm an expert.
Okay,
snail
exactly,
flicker.
Instant expert. So, but this idea that so we think that's what we need. What people actually need is functional knowledge of like, how do I actually live my life? And when you apply that in the Christian space, and really the illustration that he used was, he said, he knew somebody that was on campus in a campus ministry at Harvard.
Please stand by. There's a ghost in our studio.
We're having a technical glitch.
That's all right. Okay.
Yeah.
We're good.
So
welcome.
Yeah. So he said that he knew somebody that was doing campus ministry at Harvard. And the question was, is it intimidating to do campus ministry at Harvard with all these like brilliant professors, like some of the most brilliant people in the world? And he said it's only intimidating if you talk to them about their field of expertise. But in the end, every professor at Harvard just wants his kid to talk to him at the end of the day, and wants to know that his wife didn't give up on their marriage.
Oh, geez.
And wants to know, how do I do that?
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's outside their area of expertise, but they still just need the functional knowledge of like, how do I keep my family together?
Yeah.
How do I walk in faith? How do I live if they're Christian? How do I live for Christ? And so I'm just applying that to us, and just even in some of these discipleship rooms I've been in and intensives that I've been a part of or whatever, just recognizing that people that I thought, we're Christians forever and, and just going, I've never thought about incorporating Jesus into my everyday life. Yeah. And then to go, okay, well, what does that look like? Okay, well, here's what I think it would look like. When this person comes to me, I usually get mad. Well, what would it look like to demonstrate patience? And maybe here's a tool or here's a principle or whatever. Like to be at that level and going, when I think of 30 years of sermons that I've preached and go, and still most people don't know how to actually functionally live this out in their day-to-day life. Like we have to do something different. So part of it is just fuel for what we're already doing.
Absolutely.
But it just gave language to a part of this that I think was really helpful, that, maybe the sermons are intended to increase our overall brilliance. Yeah. But they're actually not helping people to functionally live for Jesus every day. And if we can do more of that.
Yeah, it's good.
And we've talked about the phrase, what if we put as much effort into our training as we do into our teaching? And I think that's what we're endeavoring to do.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that functional knowledge. That's really memorable. I think for me, a little whiplash here, but this idea of autobiographical engagement and whether you're leading a training, starting a meeting, just starting a brainstorm session, being able to ask people a question that gets them engaging their brain and specifically their experiences.
Right.
Will get you I would say just more engagement would be the easiest way to say it, but I think people lean in more. I think it gets them going before you as the presenter have to go, and almost like the cool thing about it, in my opinion, is if you ask a question where it could be like either negative or positive, whichever way that goes in the group, you can use that to set up whatever you're doing. And it's just I think it just helps people. I think it's also sets like for newer people coming in, it's like this more communal kind of feel. We're kind of in this together.
So
let
me give an example. So instead of coming into say you're coming into a room full of people to do a training, instead of starting with, hey, today I'm going to talk about the 3 things that we're going to blank, blank, you say, hey, before we begin today, I want you to turn to your neighbor and tell them a time in your life when you blank. That kind of introduces the topic, but in what you just said, an autobiographical, engaging way, that to start meetings, trainings, anything like that kind of sets a whole different tone.
It could be as simple as that.
Turn to your neighbor and tell them about a time when you
X
fill in the blank.
That will lead to the problem you're trying to solve.
And I think we've just seen the fruit of that. Incredibly.
For sure. It's simple, but I'm trying to employ it because, again, it's against my upbringing. My upbringing is like, get the content out, maybe get feedback, of course, but like get as much out as possible. And this is way more. I have to make myself do it.
That's really good. That's really good. So another one, and this has to do a little bit, it's kind of a culmination of things. I'm actually working on a training that I've been working on for about a month now that I think is going to be a big shifter for us. But one of the things that we've been traditionally, I think, pretty good at as a church is this whole idea of empowerment, empowering our people. I wrote a whole book about, our volunteer empowerment culture, where we've got high capacity volunteers who are leading at a staff level all across our church. And so this shift for us has made me rethink that. And it's one of many examples now of things that it's like we did really well, we just didn't go quite far enough, I think. And it's that false finish line idea that we created a finish line. And so the idea of empowerment, while it's great, it's entrusting somebody with the full authority to accomplish some kind of a ministry task or whatever. It's enabling them to act independently, inside some defined boundaries, but it's even beyond delegation. Delegation is, go do and report back, go do and report. This is really giving full authority for people to go. So that's empowerment. I felt like we got really good at it.
For sure.
And it was, I think still short of what we want to be. And the word that we're using now to describe that is development. And so development goes beyond empowerment, because now development is not just about the task anymore. It's about the person and investing in that person's growth through their ministry experience. And so it's shifting the focus from what they're getting done for you or for the church or, for the staff or for ministry or whatever. And it's going, how am I invested in your growth through this? And so really kind of boiling that down into, okay, if that's the idea, what are some practices that get us there? And they're really simple and basic. But I've been thinking really those practices are encouragement, great questions, on-time training, and feedback. And that if we do those 4 things with a person as they are working with us in ministry, that's what begins to shift the relationship, not just about what did you get done, but it's about how am I developing you as a person.
That makes me think, throughout our history, I've had several different people ask me questions similar to, why is Grace so obsessed with leadership? I'm sure you've heard stuff like that. And my answer is always, I'm talking about like, it's just a different word for discipleship, blah, blah, blah. But this, like having this development word, I think is great. I think it's going to help us kind of, again, my mind goes to like, how do we make this make sense for people? But like having a new word that means both of those things, leadership, discipleship, all together. And I think that's going to be really cool.
That's what I think. It represents that kind of collision between those two things. It's a discipleship word. It's also a leadership word. And it's not necessarily the word that we associate with both of those things, but it is the bridge that brings them both together.
Yeah, I love that. That's a good one. My last one is similar to the gray thing, but again, I think mine are more just like, I don't know what my problem is. But anyway, I keep having to tell myself, I keep finding myself saying in my head that awesome is on the other side of awkward. Because throughout this whole thing, we're changing stuff up on not only just like staff and teams, but just congregation is starting to like go out to like our larger group of volunteers and things. And so having to lean into those either conversations or pivots or changes that maybe in the past I would have like slow rolled,
Yep.
not for strategy, but because I didn't feel like getting into the awkward at that moment. I'm really trying to unlearn that and really try to just tackle the stuff head on. Whether it's a work thing or, like I said, like a program change or something like that.
Yeah.
I think the better we could be at that, the quicker we can be with the most clarity, we can get out of this like messy middle.
That's really great.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that principle just applies so much to all aspects of life. I mean, you think about evangelism, you think about new friendships, you think about like awesome is on the other side of awkward.
Yeah.
Because those, and we avoid awkward like the plague. And so that means we also never get to awesome, if we would just push through some of those feelings.
Yeah.
All right. That's good. And my last one is, I don't know if it's a principle yet, but it's something that I've really been, I did a workshop a few weeks ago with a group of pastors, and started the workshop with a meditation on Psalms and talking about just, that there's stuff that pastors carry that maybe God hasn't asked us to carry, and it's too heavy, and it just wanted to lighten the load and talk about how God carries our burdens and all that. So I got done with the workshop kind of talking about our journey, and this one pastor raises her hand and she says, you started with that whole thing in the Psalms about how you said you wanted God to release our burdens, and she said, you just made doing church a lot harder. Like, oh, crap.
Yep.
Well, that didn't work.
I was trying to clear the deck so we could insert this.
But it really made me think, and my pushback to her in the moment was, I don't know if that, I understand that. Believe me, this is hard.
Yeah.
But church is hard in general.
Yeah, you're choosing.
Right. But also, when I'm sitting in some of these intensives that I'm doing with 4 or 5 people and just going, here's some discipleship questions, read down the list till the Holy Spirit tells you to stop. He told me to stop here. Why? What's he saying? What's he trying to say to you? We're not coming up with good ideas. We're coming up with what is God trying to say. They put it into words. You look around the table and go, is God telling anybody else to speak into this person's life? A couple of them do. Okay, move to the next one. What's God revealing to you? Is God speaking through anybody else to that person? And we just go around the room like that for an hour. Some of the most fruitful ministry I've done in the last 30 years is in the last 8 weeks around tables like that. And to go, is that harder or easier? I think it's easier. It's hard when we're talking about thousands of people. How do we help thousands of people do that? And how do we help thousands of people commit to doing that? But what Jesus called us to, he said, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And part of it is that because we're yoked with him. And so when we do things with him, there's always effort involved. But man, I don't know. Is this way of church harder or easier than the other way of church we were doing? I'm not sure I'm ready to answer that question. I just know that some of the methodologies that we're playing with are very simple. And it's making me question all of the hard work I've done for many years to come up with leadership trainings and go, if sitting around a table with 5 people and just saying, what's God saying? And let's speak. If that was it all along, I'm like kicking myself a little bit.
But you know what's cool about it though, is that in order to lead that, you have to have a tool belt.
It's true.
That's full of, you got to be able to say, oh, that reminds me of that Lencioni, blah, blah, or that reminds me of blah, blah, blah,
It's true.
That scripture or whatever. And so you obviously have that in spades, but it's a beautiful like peek into what this could be. Those intensives for sure.
They really are. Yeah. So those are good 6 lessons. That's where we sit right now. I don't know if they're profound or helpful, but
it's just what they are.
That's where we at.
That's just what they are. That's where we're at. Okay. So super practical. What happened this week? Church's second Super Bowl, Easter weekend. I don't know how everybody handles it, but we handle it around here. Generally, we'll do like a Good Friday, sometimes a Saturday, and then a Sunday, and then the Saturday, Sunday are kind of like the Easter, quote unquote, experiences.
That's right.
We've pivoted in recent history where Saturday is more of like a family friendly thing where there'll be like a kid's sermon. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday basically is how we attack it.
Yep.
And this year I was out of town, which never happens.
Yeah.
But I was out of town for Good Friday, so I didn't see that part.
So were a lot of people, by the way.
Yeah. This is just a random behind the scenes thing, but like spring breaks for a lot of the schools lined up weird this year. I feel like normally they're like a little bit after Easter, or maybe it's because Easter was late. I don't know. But a lot of people took off. Plus we had the worst winter in decades.
Right. So people were just ready to go.
And I love winter. I love the snow. But when you take your kid, throw them off a porch and they disappear into the snow, it's too much.
Right.
But so, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
Good Friday. Yeah. Why don't you were more Good Friday.
Yeah. So Good Friday was great. It Good Friday for us has always been experiential. Oftentimes a little bit more, not like a normal service, but we're playing with some creative ideas and risk taking. And so our team definitely took some risks this year, set it up almost like a memorial, like you would see on a street corner somewhere if somebody, a young person died or whatever, and people come and put roses on the fence, and a couple people stand up at a microphone and share stories about that person. And so they tried to kind of recreate that moment as if it was the friends of Jesus on the night that he died, and them coming and just sharing. And people put their actual testimonies into kind of stylistic verbiage, so that it kind of matched this memorial service theme. So it was amazing. We had tons of people that came out to it. I think there were probably some mixed reviews about it, which we always get on those kind of nights. And certainly some things I think our team would have probably done differently if they had it to do over again. But I love the fact that we kind of take some risks on those nights and encourage the church to come out and really think about this age-old story that never changes, maybe through a different kind of creative lens. So.
Yeah, we have somehow come at it from so many different angles.
Yeah,
at some point, maybe we'll start repeating. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's been a cool. Some of my favorite moments in like programming we've done have been in these services, like just beautiful moments for people. And I think for us, I think it can continue. We talked about this a little bit earlier. I think it can continue to be an experimental space.
Right.
It just. Now that we're learning these new things, maybe it leans into that like communal experimental space a little bit more.
Yeah, because I think part of what I think we have to watch out for is just to go. We've kind of said we're moving away from more highly produced things and to more participatory things. And so whenever we kind of sneak back into that world of going, this is kind of a creative representation, I think some people are feeling that tension of like, but I thought we were. And so, I think there's some things that we could have done different. Andrew and I talked about just, maybe some more corporate worship early on where people are participating versus kind of starting with a lot of the stylistic stuff. But I think that goes for all of these events that we do from Easter to Good Friday, to really think of them through a discipleship and disciple-making lens, while also not giving up who we are and who God made us to be. And we always have been kind of a creative, church when we come to these moments. So
and even just in a lot, you're getting into this, but with Easter, Saturday and Sunday, I feel like they were great experiences. But it was almost like we flipped the audiences in a way. Like, so we kind of maybe could have been a little bit. I think there are certain services like Easter, Christmas, maybe Mother's Day. I don't know what the other ones would be, but like where it's okay to like focus on the hospitality a little bit. It's okay to like focus on the, because even though we're not calling our people like bring your people to church, grow the church by bringing people here, attracting people here. I can guarantee two things. Most people, at least in our area, are going to be thinking about and maybe even looking for somewhere to go on Christmas and somewhere to go on Easter.
That's right. Yeah.
With us doing nothing, and maybe Mother's Day.
Yeah.
And that's with us doing nothing. Right. So even just to know, like, hey, there might be like some unconnected people in this room who didn't come with somebody.
Yep.
Just choosing what again, it's the whole gray area thing, like choosing when to prioritize that and not throwing the baby out the bathwater. Well,
and like you use the word hospitality. I think that's the right word, is to just say, instead of thinking of like from a seeker-driven lens of like how many secular songs can we do to make people feel like they're listening to the radio and not even in a church? Like that, I think that was kind of maybe the previous model a little bit, to just go, hey, we need to blend the worlds of secular and sacred and make it. I don't think that's the approach by far, but the idea of hospitality of like, I like to think about, well, what would you do different when somebody's coming into your home when they had been there before, and they don't know anybody. And so maybe your family's gathering, but you invited this couple that doesn't know your family. They've never been in your home. What would you do different to make their experience great? And so you'd explain things more, and you'd show them where the bathrooms are, and you make sure that the conversation didn't get too esoteric in terms of or
even like everyone's drinking this beverage.
Right.
Where are the cups? And here's what it is.
Exactly.
And just simple.
So explaining some things. And so, I mean, I think that on those high holidays and on those big inviter weeks that are just natural, we're not going to shy away from those.
No.
But we do have to think about how do we create space that makes that helpful to those people, that they'll know who we are. They can get a true taste of who we are, what we're about. And it's that whole, what you won them with, you won them to kind of thing. So it's like, we don't want to do a big thing that we never do again.
Yeah, no.
And then they come back the next week and they're like, wait a second.
What was it?
So those days do have to reflect who we are.
Yes.
So that people know what they're getting into if they choose to come back.
Yeah. So, I agree. Yeah, that's good. I'm looking forward to evaluating it with everybody. It'll be good.
Yeah.
Okay, I think this might be it.
This is it for season 2.
Yeah, this is it. So I would say if you have not subscribed yet, you should do that so that you get an alert when we come back for season 3. And again, like Derek said, I think it's going to be really great. We're going to have some cool practitioners on, hopefully, and we have some good plans for that season. So for this episode, if you liked it, you can still tell us by leaving a rating or review. And make sure you go over to dereksanford.com/reinventing church. That's where you can find the show notes. You can also subscribe to his newsletter. That'll also keep you connected and give you all the latest free tools and things that you're going to continue to be learning throughout the summer.
Right on.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody, for following along.
Yeah.
Peace.